Are you trying to find out what's better, to buy a house or to rent a house? Well, keep watching and I'm going to help you make that decision. Hello everybody, my name is Devren Cook and today we are going to tackle the question of whether you should rent a house or buy a house. And renting applies to apartments, townhomes, those things as well. But we're going to tackle that question today because there's a lot of thoughts on either side of the camp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the pros and the cons of buying and renting, and I'll basically present to you what I feel is the best choice depending upon your situation. Alright, so for buying, you're really going to have three main pros and three main cons. The first pro for buying a house is that you are going to be building equity. What that means is that each month when you pay your mortgage, say it's $2,000, a portion of that mortgage is really going towards your equity, which is essentially the value and the money that you have invested into the home. Some of that money is going towards interest, some of it's going towards taxes and interest, but there is a portion that is basically the money you're going to be able to cash out when you sell the house. And along with building equity through your mortgage payment, you're also going to be building equity through appreciation. And that's one of the most powerful ways to build wealth, is through home or real estate appreciation. So that's number one. And number two, the second pro is you really just get the pride of home ownership. A lot of people want to have their own space, they want to have their garage and their yard, and they want to own a home, really own the place where they reside. And you get that with buying a house, and that's a great pro for most people. And the third pro, which I touched on, is appreciation. Your house will go up in value. Homes are going to go up in value depending on your area and location, say 3 to 5%. And that means that over 10 years, you're going to be making 30% or so of the value of your home. And so that's really going to help offset some of those maintenance costs and all the things, all the money that you're going to be spending on that house. And that's really going to help you build wealth long term. Now for the three cons of buying a house. Number one is really the lack of mobility. When you buy a house, you really need to live in the house for at least 3 years before you can, sell the house, and probably just at that point break even on your expenses, because it is pretty expensive to sell a house. So with a house, if you are one of those people that want to be in a different city or a different state or a different country, and you really like moving all over the place, buying a house is probably not the best thing for you. You really need to know that you're going to stay in this space for at least 3 years, and the more time you live in it, the more money you're going to make off of it. If you're living in a house for just a year or so, chances are, unless the market's just exploded like crazy, but chances are you're not going to make money on your house, and you're probably going to be spending money, paying money out of pocket at closing in order to get out from under the house. The second biggest con is maintenance. With a house, things are going to break and you're not going to have somebody to call to come fix it. You're going to have to go out to Home Depot and you're going to have to get the gear, get the tools, and fix it yourself, or hire someone to do it for you. And that's a hassle that you're going to have to deal with regardless. There's maintenance that needs to be performed on the house, or you're going to lose money when you go to sell it. And the third and the final con for buying a house is that you are going to have to put more money down and have more out-of-pocket expenses when you buy a house versus when you're renting a house. You're going to have at least a 3% down payment and then 2 to 3% in closing costs. So those are the pros and the cons for buying a house, and now we'll discuss the pros and cons for renting. The biggest pro for renting is that you do have that increased mobility. If you want to live in an apartment for just a couple of months, 6 months, a year, and then move on to the next one, super easy to do so. You're not going to have all of those fees, the 6% fee when selling your house to a real estate agent, as well as the 2 to 3% closing costs equaling about 9% just to sell your house. You don't have that when you're renting an apartment. And even if you want to break your lease early, it might be a couple $1,000s, $2,000 or $3,000 max, depending on how high end of an apartment you're in, but it's really not that big of a deal. The second biggest pro for renting is you're not really gonna have to deal with maintenance. If you're renting a house, typically the yard is gonna be maintained, or you might be able to get less on your rent and maintain it yourself. If something breaks, you call the owner, they're gonna come fix it. If you're in an apartment, you call the apartment manager, they're gonna come fix it, and you don't have to deal with it. It's a phone call away, nothing's out of pocket for it. It's great. And the third biggest pro for renting is that you don't have those high out-of-pocket expenses. In a lot of cases, you can find an apartment that will let you rent for $0 up front, 0 security deposit. And so those are the biggest pros for renting. You get high mobility, no or minimal out-of-pocket expenses, and you really don't have to do maintenance. However, the cons for renting, and the biggest one that people always say, is that you're throwing money away, or you're wasting money, because that money, say your $2,000 you're spending on your rent versus your mortgage, that mortgage, some of it would go towards equity, basically a savings account within your house. And with renting, that $2,000 a month, it's just gone. None of that is coming back to you. So what I really think about that is it depends on how you look at it. If you look at your rent as just a utility, something that you have to spend and it's just used up by the end of the month, like your water bill or your electricity bill, then you might be able to stomach that. But if you really just have a hard time thinking that you're spending that money and none of it's coming back to you, then buying may be better for you. Another big con, especially if you're in an apartment, is you may be multiple floors up. You may have parking on the first floor and you have to go all the way up those stairs with boxes and groceries and all those things, as well as you're gonna have shared walls, so you won't have as much privacy. And so those are definitely some things to consider. And the last con that I'll discuss is that with an apartment or with a house, you're not gonna be able to update it or decorate it exactly how you want. If you wanna change the paint in a bedroom, you're most likely not gonna be able to do that, or you'll be limited with your choices because the owner's not gonna want you to paint it bright pink. You know, it'll typically have to be, if it's approved, a beige or a gray or some neutral tone. So if you're really into decorating and putting your personal touches on the place you live, you're gonna be somewhat limited with renting, whether it's an apartment or a house. So that's it, guys. Those are the pros and the cons of renting versus buying. My personal opinion is that if you are someone who is established, you know where you want to live, you have the money in the bank, and you know that you're gonna live in this place for probably 10, 15 years, you got a steady job, go ahead and buy a house. It's probably the best option for you and it makes the most financial sense. If you're a bit younger or you're a bit older and you just like to move around, be in different places, or maybe your job's not so steady, not really sure what the future is gonna hold, probably renting is gonna be the best option for you. And like always, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. Remember to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.